So you're dead. Now what? That's actually a fairly common question that people ask me. What happens between the time you die and the time Jesus comes back and you're resurrected from the dead? Where do you go? What's that like? Well, there's only 3 passages that address that subject. And they're not super clear. So let me tell you what we can know from what we know. Philippians chapter 1, verses 21 through 24. Paul says, I don't know what I would choose. I want to leave and go be present with Christ, but I also want to stay here, even though I'm going to suffer and work with you. So I don't know what's best for me. I think I'm going to stay here. I don't know that he had a choice, but Paul's statement is pretty simple. To be absent from the body is to be present with Christ. So whatever else happens when you die, you are, if you're a believer, immediately in the presence of Jesus. Here's the second passage in Luke chapter 16. Actually, it talks about this parable of the rich man and Lazarus. Tradition calls him Dives, so I'll just call him Dives and Lazarus. In the story, the rich man, Dives, has this beggar, Lazarus, at his gate. And Lazarus keeps begging for food, and the rich man doesn't help him, and they die. And guess what? They switch places. Now, Lazarus is in what they call the bosom of Abraham. It's a place of comfort. It's a place of blessing. Whereas the rich man, he goes, we'll just say, down under. And he's suffering and asks for Lazarus to come and take a drop of water and put it on his tongue. So what can we know? Well, first of all, this is a story. And so I don't know how much to make from a story, from a parable illustrating a principle. But at least this much has to be true for the story to make sense. That when you die, number one, you are in a place of comfort if you're with Jesus, and suffering, torment, if you're not with Jesus. And it seems reasonable that there's an awareness between those who are in the bosom of Abraham and those who are not. Not only awareness of their own suffering, but awareness of what's happening in the other place. The third passage, clear at the end of the book, is Revelation chapter 7. You see the scene around the throne room of God. And there's these people in white robes. And the angel asks John, who are these people? And he says, I don't know, you know. They were the martyrs who had died because of the profession of faith. They're standing under the throne of God, and they're wearing white robes. The white robes were kind of a reward for them and a recognition of the purity of their lives. So what can one say about the assurance when a person dies? Well, first of all, they will be with Jesus. They will be rewarded. And when the second coming comes, they will be raised to a new body. So right now, we know that if you're a follower of Christ, you will be with him immediately when you die. There's this idea of soul sleep, that you're not aware, that you're but it comes from this idea that the Bible euphemistically says that you fall asleep, meaning you're dead. It doesn't mean that you're unconscious. You are very much conscious, and you're aware of your comfort in Christ. But here's where you're uncomfortable. You will not have a body between the time you die and the time Jesus comes, because we will all be raised to new bodies at the same time. So we have a soul that is disembodied, aware, conscious, we can see, know, sense, but we don't yet have a new body. So there will be an incompleteness to us until Jesus returns and raises the dead. Now, probably you have 100 other questions about what I just said. Good for you, because on week 4 of this series, we're actually going to do a Q&A. Ashley and I are going to be on the stage together dealing with some of the questions that you have. So if you have a question, here's all you need to do. Send your question in an email to ask@ccv.church. Again, that is ask@ccv.church. And we'll do the best we can to answer as many as we can. But in the meantime, this is something worth talking about.